This is Van Maluk Ghost, and we're live with Waterflower. We've interviewed you before, but now we're on our video podcast. So thank you for being on the program again.
Yeah, thank you. I'm so excited to be here today and to speak to you face to face.
Yeah, it's a little different than what we've been doing for the last 2 years. We do like the audio podcast because it makes people kind of focus on like what you're saying rather than what you look like and how you perceive visually. But in the world where everything's like video, we kind of dove into it. So now we're doing the video versions, but we still do the audio. This is actually going to still be on Anchor FM.
Fantastic.
It'll still go out to like Apple and Spotify and all those other platforms. This won't be simultaneously. It will go out there. So we're going to talk about your new single, Love, from your album. Maybe I make sure I got this, Balta Gaisma.
Yes, that's, you pronounced it perfectly.
It's white light, right?
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
That sounds really cool. Because, I mean, we talked to you before, and you've got this really kind of progressive, kind of experimental leanings in your music, which is, where I kind of live and who I like to talk to among musicians that I interview. But I guess it's leaning toward more of a hyper pop PC music, kind of 21st century pop.
Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely exploring those things. I think even there, the newest song in progressive creation on the album was Zemordens, which is actually the one that's most towards this kind of hyperpop sound. But overall, I would say it's so experimental that
that's cool. That's a good thing.
That it's a lot of different things at once. But I'm very much into hyperpop and PC music, so I hope people can hear that in there as well.
Yeah, well, we're going to go and play your video, so I'm going to cue it up. And so, see, I think it's on the full screen now. And then I'll mute your mic and then mute mine, and then we'll get into this. And then we'll talk about it on the back end of the video.
Take me and satisfied longings with kisses you break me to make our beginning. Is this love that we found our own dimension? This is crystal pure sound, our own invention. With warmth you can take me and satisfied longings with kisses you break me to make our beginning. this crystal pure sound, our own invention.
So that's the Love video, the official video. I'll take you off mute now, and we'll get both back on. So that's really, I like the imagery. It kind of reminded me, I don't know, of the Smashing Pumpkins Tonight's Tonight video.
Oh, I don't think I know that.
Yeah, back in the 90s, they did this video that had like, it had this idea of the moon, and they were kind of like, they had like kind of cut out things that you had in that video. This is not the same look, but they had some things, elements that were somewhat similar. But that was experimental at the time too, like progressive grunge. But
Yep.
But what it kind of reminded me of, like Kate Bush and Tori Amos, Laurie Anderson. You've got that vibe, and I like the kind of down tempo kind of. A lot of things today are so kind of into this kind of club beat, and I find it's really cool when you actually slow down the tempo and then you can bring other elements in, and that song is kind of really in that space.
Yeah, that song was quite interesting because it was the only song I started by looping some violin, just recording it on my loop station, and then gradually that became a song which I played live now and again, but it was always a bit complicated because I've played violin since I was small, but not that much. And so it was always a challenge. And at one point in the studio, I was once we recorded this bass loop that I'd always done, I took it home and just produced the hell out of it, and added so many things and so many layers, and also my partner Richard from this project Lost Harbors, he played some guitar on it, which you can just about hear, and then at
It's
one
kind of
point,
like a shadow. It's like a shadow guitar track. Like, it's really light. I can kind of hear it in my headphones.
yeah, it's just because there's so many parts, because I just went crazy with various layers because I love like orchestral instrumentation, and obviously it's all built digitally, except for the violin and the guitar. Everything else is just built from VSTs.
But you got that kind of like Phil Spector wall of sound, but you've got it in a real subtle way. Like, if you listen to like Phil Spector, his stuff is like really kind of overwhelming. It's like there's so much there that you're trying to kind of deconstruct it. But what you've done here is, like, I know that you've got all these layers, but it's more subtle, and it's not like totally in your face, but it's like it's a little down tempo. It's experimental. You can feel the experimental groove, and then the video really shows that too. I mean, we can talk about how that got produced, but the song, we'll focus on the song for now. I like the feel of it. It's really kind of where the space that I've always talked to people about. Like, if you slow the BPM down, if you kind of go there with the the layers of the synthesis, and then you've got kind of like this newfound thing where you brought in the violin, and then so you actually played that violin yourself?
Yeah, I did.
That's cool.
And I really like building chords with various different instruments. Let's say that each instrument just plays a a melody part of that chord, and that's how I fill the space with so many different sounds. So if each instrument is just playing a mono melody, then together they kind of come together as this chord-like sound.
Kind of like what I do with my modes, my monophonic modes. Instead of going on a polyphonic synth, I'll go and like layer different one note capabilities, because like the monophonic nature of it sometimes is more powerful than even the chord. And if you take a bunch of them and layer them, it's kind of what you had to do before polyphonic synths. But I kind of like the limitation of doing that, because then it's harder to do it and it's not as easy. You get to go into VST and do that. But like if you take a hardware Moog and you do that,
it must be difficult.
But it's kind of satisfying. I kind of get the idea. So when you actually did the basic demo for this, what did that sound like? What was that? What was it?
The demo was quite spacious because it was all about these plucks of the violin, this basic rhythm that's still there. And I wasn't planning on filling it up too much, but I just wanted to make it a little bit thicker. And then many things happened in the middle and ended up being quite thick and probably not that easy to mix. But I really love the
recording engineer probably liked it.
Well, actually, I have a really good working relationship with the guy who mixed the album, and I actually recorded the vocals in his studio as well. And actually, he won an award for Producer of the Year in all of Latvia this year, like just some weeks ago. And
for this work or other work?
No, like he works with so many different projects and a lot of experimental music as well.
Cool.
And
it's good to have a recording engineer that has your concept in mind. That doesn't go and kind of like sometimes you hear stories in the past where like some engineers, like they didn't understand Hendrix, or they didn't understand, like Peter Gabriel, and they would go and like change what their intention is, and then they go back and it's like, no, that's not my intent.
That's a tough one. That's a really, really tough one, because the way I work with people, I always like understand that they work with good intentions, and I'm ready to hear them out. And but let's say I just don't pick to work with people who won't hear me out as well, because otherwise
well, that's the whole reason you're kind of in this indie space, is that the reason why we do this is because we have a vision, and some people maybe don't have as full a complete vision and need to get molded. But I think people like yourself who have really you have a core idea what you want to do. And you want people on your team that they're team players from that point of view.
Yeah, and it's just so much more interesting if a person has something to say. I think it's so much more interesting to let them just get on with it. Obviously people need help and people need to work with each other, but just because someone doesn't understand something, it doesn't necessarily mean that it needs to change.
Yeah. Well, sometimes there's like standard like recording practices that people who are more innovative break rules, and then they say, well, you shouldn't do that, or you shouldn't have that timing, or you shouldn't have this kind of arrangement. So when you're in that experimental space, if you get somebody who's more traditional, all they do is like heavy metal or rock bands, and then they hear that, well, that's not what I'm used to. And then then you don't. It's like, well, I don't want it to sound like Zeppelin. I want it to sound more ethereal, so it's gonna be going for like Yes or Pink Floyd, or it's gonna have that kind of layered expansiveness. I mean, the whole idea I bring up the expansive sound is because I don't like limitations, and a lot of people I've been talking to, it seems like you're in that kind of space that you like to mix all kinds of things, like acoustic instruments like the violin, sampling, granular synthesis, and everything that you do is really cool. It's kind of like a cutting edge. It's where you want to be, to me, when you're in music. But everybody has their own little niche. Everybody has a niche, and there's always things that are cool in every genre. So I mean, I talk to multiple genres all the time. But Oh, it's interesting. I was reading your latest bio, and you actually met Brian Eno, who's a big hero of mine as well.
Yeah, that was so unreal. I can't even believe that it was real now. It just so happened that he had a exhibition opening in Riga, and for some reason, I don't know why, it wasn't well advertised. And I only found out about it because a friend of mine took a photo and put of the poster and put it on Instagram. And
Well, that was good. That was a good catch.
yeah, and it was like the opening party wasn't actually publicly announced, but I had an inkling what time it could be based on previous experience. And I called up a curator who I knew, and I was like, look, how can I get in? And yeah, and then it turned out that not that many people were there at all, because the gallery has somehow just failed to do the advertising. And then people were supposed to ask him questions, and that curator was like, okay, so Sabine can start and ask him questions.
Well, that's cool.
And
Yeah.
yeah, that was amazing.
Yeah, because I mean, his work with Bowie, his work with U2, work with Dylan. I mean, I followed his work, and it's a big part of what I try to get to. And at one point, like he found some of my stuff, and he pushed it on a label. He had like
Awesome.
one song I did off this label, Mojo Heads. But yeah, it was just interesting that you're in that same kind of space that you like. If you look at a person like him, I've seen some documentaries on him how he was working with Bowie, and he was like this going on a chalkboard and randomly telling people to put chords here and there, and then using all kinds of studio equipment and just playing with things. And it just that to me is that whole idea is like taking some cutting edge equipment and maybe or taking some lo-fi equipment or taking whatever and just having this this different approach. Is like, why can't we do that? Why shouldn't we do this?
And the other thing is, like, he's come from a contemporary art background. At least that's what he originally studied, and so have I. So I really resonate with these concepts he tries to put in the music, and yeah, I could say that I really look up to that because that is what I do as well. So it's just really comforting to see like this, amazing.
It's cool to be in the same room with somebody that you got that kind of feel for, like I got heroes like Rick Wakeman and Keith Emerson, Pete Townsend, everybody in Pink Floyd. I mean Hendrix, but Sun Ra. I mean, if I ever met, I did get to see Prince at Paisley Park one time, and that was just a total relevant. Is this to see him in his own house and feel to be comfortable? He was just playing like a 3-piece band, like a power trio, and he wasn't doing any of his hits. He was just playing like blues, and that was like that's the kind of thing I wanted to see. Like everybody wants to see Purple Rain, but I actually wanted to see him do something that he just felt happy with, and playing like fuzzed out blues like the Hendrix experience. That's kind of what I always thought he could do, and he does. You see glimpses of it, but to actually see that for live was like, oh my gosh, that was pretty crazy.
I googled that Smashing Pumpkins music video, and Google Images came up with some interesting gifs, and I can totally see what you were saying about the Love music video.
Yeah, you see what I'm saying? It's not. Yeah, it's not like you have a different like take on it, but it's like somewhat in the same space, which
something
cool.
It's happening in the sky, and it's
yeah.
It's
just yeah. Go ahead.
I just wanted to bring up the fact that the music video for Love was made entirely at home.
Oh, you did that at home?
Yeah.
With a lot of like technical gear to like do it through the computer, or was it done like
and a pen and a scanner and a camera and some lights and some green fabric. That's
really cool. I mean, I like it. I think it's cool. I mean, I think it has a really cool feel.
I'm really, really actually proud of that video because any project which I've done like from A to Z on my own, it's always quite a hassle to stay focused and, you know, to keep on going until you reach the finish line. And this is one of the ones where I did it. So I'm
Well, it's
like,
cool that you
yeah.
took you have the whole song you did yourself, you know, and then you did this video. So you kind of got that kind of Laurie Anderson kind of complete artist concept, you know, like Andy Warhol. I
I
mean,
hope it
I was a
translates that way.
yeah. Well, I mean, I'm a big fan of like what Warhol was doing with the Velvets underground. He used to have these big happenings, and the Velvets would be there, actors would be there, you know, poets and models, and then he'd be running his like visual paintings behind the band or films around the band, and it was just very artistic, and it's cool to see when there's this kind of synthesis of art and video and music, and you're kind of pulling all that together, and that's really, to me, that's the whole picture of an artist, is like how you come off as like your stagecraft, and that video kind of shows your stagecraft and gives you like the visual input to like how your perspective on the song, and it's just cool to
Yeah.
have it coming all from you rather than some video director that interpreted you and created it. Not that that's not cool, but it's cool that you get
Yeah.
the art, your artist vision.
Yeah, no, it's a language, visual. At least the way I use my visuals is it's like it's totally a language, and I feel like when you listen to Waterflower, or when someone listens to Waterflower, they really are only getting part of the whole thing. Like whenever I perform, I spend a lot of energy also repairing the visual parts, and it's part of the performance. Like
Yeah,
the
yeah,
way
you
the way
talked
I
about
work,
that.
it's not like the music is there for people to put on repeat on some playlist in the background. It's an
Yeah.
art piece itself that is audio visual. So
So
I
that goes
really
toward
like it when people get to experience these two things together.
that kind of goes toward your album, because the people, we're in such an age where it's like the single and the Spotify playlist or whatever playlist. Um, but the idea of White Light or Balta Gaisma, is that like a concept album, or does every song kind of feel like it fits within this project?
It's not exactly a concept album. It is an album. Like I mean, like I was touring a lot before COVID, like loads, or in around Europe, and I was hoping to get to the next step and go further as well. But all these songs were basically created and toured for
On the
about
road?
5 years. Yeah, and so they
Yeah.
changed over that period. I mean, some are older, some are newer, and that's just like the ones which stuck with me the longest, and that I felt needed to be
Oh, so it was kind of like your
made into
set
the
list. Was it
song.
like your performance list became your album?
Yeah,
Like,
something
yeah,
like that. Yeah.
yeah, because sometimes that happens with a band. That like you go out and you start developing like a set list, because you got to play like what, 30 minutes, 45 minutes, an hour, depending on what type of gig you're doing, and then you start to build like a show. And you know,
Yeah.
and if you're a new band and you don't have a full album yet, that show tends to become your album. You know,
Yeah. No, I mean there are loads more songs that didn't make it to this album, and there are actually a couple which I'm just holding back until a special
the
moment.
next one, so the next project.
And but yeah, I really felt how the songs changed whilst performing them live to different people in different countries, because uh I just got to test them out on real people and see how real people reacted and what they resonated with. And I've always tried to connect with the audience in some way. I mean, obviously, all this is very, very can be very overwhelming also when it's a big visual woo and the sounds are all weird and everything's weird. But I do really actually care for my audience and connecting with them. And the moment I see that they're getting that or they're not getting that of the song, then next time round I do work at it make mental notes. So they have changed. And the weirdest thing is that some of the melodies have slightly changed. Like I found some old demos of some of the songs, and I was like, totally sure I've always been singing it the same. And in the demo, it's slightly different. And I'm like,
Well, that
what?
seems it's weird. It's like the lab. Like when you go to play in front of an audience, like what worked in the studio, then suddenly for live performance, suddenly the song changes to make it actually work. Then you kind of, it's like a laboratory. You get into social feedback, and then you feel like, okay, when I perform this, I have to kind of do it like this because this is how the people will receive it. And when you're in the studio, you're kind of like it's an audience of one or a couple, 4 or 5 people, and you've got one vibe, and you're kind of going for a different feel to me on studio recordings versus what you do live. Yeah, and then it ends up being emerging. It's like, okay, what can I, how, because some bands are like, oh, okay, I got to try to make us sound more like our live performance in the studio. And then other bands are like, I don't actually want to sound like I do live. I want to sound like something I can't do live. You know, because sometimes you make the album such a way it's so difficult to play live that the live version never matches the studio version because you can't actually do it. Do you ever find that kind of problem? Like with some of your songs, is it too hard to actually do it exactly as you're recording it, and you have like a studio performance versus a live performance version?
Well, I'm a little bit far removed from all that now, so I'm struggling to answer that question. It's just, you know,
because nobody's been able to be out there for a while.
But generally, working with a loop station means I can separate the songs into different parts and play only some bits live, but then have the part of the songs prepared, let's say, smartly. So if I need a certain part to be extended or switch quicker, I can do that. I couldn't play all the electronics live. It would just not be possible.
Yeah, it's difficult because, you know, I'm a one-person project myself, and I use a lot of, like, I kind of handicap myself with all these analog sequencers. So I've got all these analog sequencers kind of timed off of each other. And then like, so I don't have the luxury like that, like a loop station. I'm kind of like, I kind of am free and controlled because I'm controlled by what the limitations of the analog equipment. But then the analog equipment can kind of go off on its own in some ways. Like if I change the rate of the LFO or I change an envelope and it's triggering something else, it gives me something unexpected, and then I can kind of like a jazz musician kind of flow with it. Or I can just run it like, okay, I can run it off. I use hardware recorders instead of like loop stations. So I'll have like Alexandro Cortini, Alexandro Cortini from Nine Inch Nails. He had a habit of using like Tascams and then muting and unmuting hardware Tascams, tape recorders on stage with Nine Inch Nails. And I saw him like, and I kind of been copying that technique in that you have a controlled, you can keep your song the same as you recorded it because you have the original master, but then you can mute and unmute and then change it by doing that, or even run that output into something that changes it by running it through effect pedals or something. And then in that way, you can have like this live performance that could be stable or unstable or change wherever you want, but it's not on a computer. It's all like hardware.
No, that's amazing. And I know some people who actually my dad's starting to do electronic music again. He used to be in a synth pop band when he was younger.
Like a new wave band, like a new romantic band.
Depeche Mode.
Yeah, Depeche Mode. Yeah.
And I saw that he's recently he got what was it? It was this really new thing where you could sequence several analog MIDI instruments all at once. Like he does the thing that you're saying.
Yeah. That's what I like. I like hardware sequencers because run off the different clocks, and it's a little tricky, but it's like I think the whole beauty of it is like you dive into it down a rabbit hole. You just like, and if you get into a monologue, like any kind of analog equipment, it ends up being a big rabbit hole because like you could spend like a couple hours just, oh, where's this going? Where's this going? Where's this going? You just keep on going down the hole, and somebody knocks on the door. He's like, you've been in there for like 5 hours on one thing. It's like,
Oh, this
okay,
is
yeah.
awesome, though.
But it's like maybe I should go faster, but I don't want to. But so like with Love, how long did that take to compose? And is that something that took over a long period of time, or was it something that came to you kind of quickly?
I didn't have a time limit, so
Yes, I mean, not that I'm trying to put it. I'm just wondering because some songs take months to recreate, and some songs kind of just happen. Just wondering, like, because it seemed like you were layering it, so that must have been over time you were doing that.
yeah, no, the whole album, it kind of just happened, and Love included. And I started with the violin, and then I recorded some lo-fi open board synths in the loop station as well. And then I was like, oh, what should I do? And I was staying somewhere where there was a piano, and I set my little Zoom up and I recorded some more piano loops. Oh, so there is another analog instrument. There's piano. Yes.
Yeah, you actually have piano off of like a field recorder, like a Zoom field recorder, and you picked it up.
Yeah, just a Zoom H1 because it's got really nice
Yeah, the
sound.
mics are good on that. Yeah.
Yeah, and so I just recorded some loops on that, and then that became that basis of the song. And that was, gosh, I think that was in 2017 or 2018. And then in the studio, did that, and then spent another few weeks thinking about it and doing it on and off. So I'm not sure how long the song itself actually took to make, but I've drawn out the process because I do prefer to put things aside and revisit them again later, because I find that if I try and do everything all at once, everything ends up sounding like
The
same song. Yes.
Yeah. I mean, that is a good thing. I mean, I kind of was watching a Frank Zappa documentary, and he had this habit of like taping everything he ever did. So when they would go out and tour, he had all these reel to reels, and they'd go home. His wife would say he'd come home and he'd have all these reels on the floor, and they from different projects, and he would start splicing them. And he'd say, "Well, here's some live stuff I did. Here's a studio I did," and then he just sit there with his headphones and say, "Okay, this works with this project. This works." And he had things into like project lanes, and then he would start cutting them and say, "Oh, this little piece from this tape actually goes better with this," and then he start bouncing them around. And that's kind of a cool thing to do. I think Neil Young used to do that too with Crazy Horse. They used to do these big reels and then go back and listen and then move things around.
Yeah, I get that. I totally get that. I used to, when I started out, I would spend like a couple of days just recording things, including lots of household objects, and like just finding whatever I could that made a weird sound. And then another day I'd cut up the samples and build like my own little sample libraries where the names were understandable and so on. And then later, when I felt like it, I would create songs out of them. And very much the lyrics also get collected in that same sort of way, that I just write them down. And when it's time to put stuff together, something just matches.
Do you have like a diary or a journal for your lyrics? Do you like formally keep them in like a book, or do you kind of go all over the place with different like pads of paper here and there?
Yeah, it used to be pads of paper. And then I realized that doesn't work. Because it can get lost, and that's sad. And now I just use my notes on my phone, and then I know it's always connected to the cloud. So if I'll never lose it now.
Yeah.
Because you can search for the keywords, like I want to make a song about this. Have I ever written anything on this theme? Oh yes. Oh look, that's perfect. Something like
it's
that.
Cool to use like OneNote or notes on your phone or whatever. Whatever note you do. I started to do that as well. I started using like Word and Doc, and just so I could go and get it wherever I was, like whatever device I was on, I could just jump on it and it's like, oh, there it is, and just like you're saying, doing a keyword search for something because I couldn't remember what I called it.
Yeah, that as well. I've learned that, and I'm still trying to learn that to like name things in names that are understandable. And one of the worst things is like a project always has a work in progress name, which has got nothing to do with the end title.
Oh yeah, so your original name is like so. Like I do that with song titles. I'll have something I did, and then I'll make like 10 versions of it. Each one of them's got a different name, and then I can't remember which one I like better. After like if I go back and like I save like
Oh,
6
no.
variations, and then it's like which one was the one I thought was the good one? Like oh man, now I got to go back and listen to all of them. Which I guess is not a bad thing to go back into your archive and listen to what you were doing, because I think that it's like I find that if I go back in my archive like 5 years ago or 2 months ago, like if I go back, I find stuff that's like I didn't think worked, but now where my head's at now, it works. And then it's like, oh yeah, I can work on that. And then, you know, it's just weird how that happens. I mean, sometimes it's like something like wasn't working, and then you got something new, and then now suddenly that works with what you're doing, and then you're kind of like, oh, you know, it's like I think all songwriters find that, you know, they find a lyric and they can't get the hook, or they can't get the one section, they leave it alone, and then suddenly they come back to it and it has an epiphany. It's like the muse comes in and they're like, oh, now I got it, you know.
Yeah,
so
totally.
Yeah, I heard like Greg Allman with like the famous song Melissa. He had it for years, but he didn't have a big part of the song was missing, and he just couldn't figure it out. And in fact, it was the title, it was the lyrics Melissa. He didn't know what name of the woman he wanted to be in the song.
Aha.
And then there was a whole section he didn't have because he hadn't finalized who the woman character in the song should be. And then suddenly he just had this epiphany. I guess he met somebody that he knew, and he's like, okay, that's going to be it. And then suddenly he finished it. And it was sitting on the shelf for like 3-4 years. And you never know how things happen. Like something triggers something, and then boom.
Yeah, no, I really feel that art shouldn't be overworked. And I mean, because I feel like a lot of work is always gonna put into finishing something, and I'm quite I quite think that like things should get finished, you know, things should get rounded off and finished off nicely. But when it comes to the actual idea and so on, like and fixing things, working things out, I really feel that should be done in a playful and light way. And that's another reason why I'm ready to just put stuff aside for a while. And I don't mind putting it aside for a very long time. And this is sometimes a problem when I work with other people.
But you had the song that you actually attached capacitive synths to plants. I guess that called Palm versus Palm. Can you talk about that?
Yes. That one was quite interesting to do. It also has a music video, and the music video includes actual footage from the recording process. Like I set up like a pretty crazy looking thing in my living room, and just filmed myself recording the samples, and then I took that footage together with the audio and put it into Ableton, and then cut up that. And the way Ableton works is that you can it keeps the link to the video footage when you cut up the audio and just work with the audio. Mm-hmm. So once I came up with a composition out of the bits of plant, bits of palm tree that I'd recorded, then I went and filmed extra footage to fill in all the black blanks where there was no palm trees. So I don't think it's very easy to understand which bits were recorded done before and which bits were done after, because it's I think I merged it pretty well.
But that's cool. I like the way your creative process, and I mean even the idea of using the plants, that's pretty cool. To take that. Where did you get that idea? Like on your own? Is that something you had looked up, or somebody had told you to try, or is that you were just experimenting and you figured it out?
Years ago, 6 years ago, I wanted to get a small synth because I was really into having lots of little gadgets. And back then, I didn't have a loop station. I just had a looper, two loopers, and lots of little gadgets. So I wanted another small synth. And a friend showed me like some sort of like 15 Kickstarter synths you need.
Oh,
And one,
like really, those are cool to get. I like to get it like these really one-off type ones.
yeah, yeah,
Those
yeah.
are cool to
And
have.
this is actually the one I was using originally, the first one, because I got carried away with it after. But the first one I was using was called a, well, I still have it, a Dentaku Ototo, and it's out of production now. But that's the capacitive synth. And it was advertised to be played with, fruits and vegetables, and a bit like a makey makey, if you've heard of that.
Yeah, yeah,
Uh,
yeah. I think there's a new one from like Noise called Estrega that actually you can actually take like organic material and it's got like touch, like it's like a bukla. So
hmm.
to actually interface with it are like not, it's like bukla type keys where they're like solid state little capacitive things that you can throw organic material on, like your fingers, but you could take like a piece of like a vegetable, like a red
Yeah,
pepper.
exactly.
You could take a red
Yeah.
pepper and then connect it from one thing to the next, and
Oh,
it
right.
actually does a lot of weird noise. I mean, it has like a karaoke delay, analog delay built into it, and so
Oh,
it tends to do a lot of weird stuff with noise, like white, pink, brown, blue, all types of noise, and
that's pretty cool though.
yeah.
Noisy peppers. I like that.
Yeah, you can noisy peppers. They could be a good album. You can have that one.
Noisy peppers. Yeah, but anyway, like yeah, it was advertised on bananas and apples or whatever. And but for some reason, when I saw that, I was like, wait a minute, plants.
Yeah.
Just the moment I saw it, I knew that I'm going to get it in order to play plants on stage. And it just came to me, and I was like, every venue has plants. I can find plants and I
Oh,
can
then
play them.
you can use them.
Yeah, and
That's
and
cool.
that's and I ordered it, and then I mean it took a while for me to get to work it properly because it's a bit temperamental. But
Hmm.
eventually after about half a year and various different experiments of also doing like capacitive drawing, like drawing a drawing and making that make sounds through it and stuff like that, or no, like a I also did like capacitive scissors for one performance where I had like various different scissors connected to each key. So the scissor I was cutting with was the
Well,
one that was playing.
that's awesome. That's the kind
And
of thing I like. It's like kind of like I said, like what Warhol used to do, and what like the mothers of invention used to do. In these big happenings, they had all these artists that would show up and do I don't know, like
performance art. Woo.
performance art. Yeah, it's like Laurie Anderson again. I keep on mentioning her, but one thing I was noticing, you also got like best experimental music album and best album design nominated with this the Zelta Mikrofons Award.
That's the annual Latvian Music Awards. So
That's pretty
yeah,
cool.
I got 2 nominations, which is amazing. It's the first time I've entered into that prize, and yay, that was just amazing. And I just really am feeling really happy that once again I get to be audiovisual.
Yeah, it just seems like I would love to see like a show like when you were gonna be like going worldwide. You were gonna come to New York. You were gonna go like London. You were gonna go like a big tour.
I was gonna to loads, yeah. I mean, I was touring all the time,
You had
and
already been
then
doing it. You just kind of got put off because of the COVID.
yeah, yeah. There was. I was just when all this started. It was. I was supposed to do an Asian tour.
Oh
It's
wow, you're
like
gonna go to like Seoul and Tokyo, maybe.
it was like more experimental through someone I met online. But it was supposed to be Indonesia,
Oh
Malaysia,
cool. Oh,
Nepal, and
wow.
Taiwan.
That's
And
cool. That's pretty cool.
yeah.
'Cause usually everybody's going like what I just said, but to do the other places is probably that's kind of cool if you're coming. Yeah, I wouldn't be opposed to that. That's kind of cool. Because I was
I
actually in the
know.
situation. Yeah, I mean, had a booking agent just when this thing happened, and I had a booking
No.
agent that could get me to like Berlin and London, and then
Oh
suddenly,
no.
oh, you can't go.
Yeah.
So I just
Yeah.
doubled down on podcasting.
Yeah, no, lots of things have stopped, and it's so honestly, it's unclear when it's going to go back to anything again. So, and at first, I tried loads of live streaming, and I think at some point I will do some more live streams, but I kind of
Yeah,
that
you
first
did. You
wave
used to do
just
that a lot. I mean, I remember when I talked to you before. Didn't you do that when we talked the last time? You had been doing live streaming, where hadn't
I
you?
think so, yeah. I
Yeah,
think
I think
so.
you were. But I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, the thing about live streaming, I guess, other with people, the feedback I get from artists is like you need the artists love to connect with the audience,
Yeah.
right? And when you're doing a live streaming, you kind of got to get in a zone where you kind of get into like a trance state because you're into what you're doing, and then
Mm,
that can be cool. But if you're the type of artist that kind of really needs the audience to get there, then it's difficult to kind of
mm.
do a cool performance if you can't kind of work yourself into a fever state to be dynamic enough to make it interesting.
Yeah, totally. And like before at gigs, it was enough for people just to simply show up. And now after any live stream performance, I always was like, well, is that it? Like I felt like I just wish people would comment on live stream videos because
Yeah,
you can't see their faces. And as I
it
said,
would
like
be
before it'd be
it'd
enough for them to simply turn up, but now
it would be cool
um,
if on their phone they could jump on like a 10-20 person call and actually quick Q&A the artist, you know, which
yeah,
maybe in
it's
some
just weird
situations that'd be cool,
afterwards.
and maybe some situations it wouldn't. But
It's just weird afterwards. Like you build up this huge, well, not huge, but in my case, I build up a visual something and a
yeah,
sound
yeah,
something, and then once you're done, it's like, okay, that's
so
it. I guess I
yeah,
should
it's a
just go
bad
and
come down. He goes from like 100 down
take
to
it
zero.
back down.
Yeah, you
And you
go
know,
from like 100 to zero. Yeah,
after
that's
a
hard.
real gig, I go and talk to people always, and
Yeah,
I have a lovely evening talking to whomever I've met for the first time, and it's just really nice, and yeah.
yeah, that's the whole thing. I mean, I think artists are about community. It
Mm.
includes the fans and the bloggers and the press and anybody who's there. And so it's just when you're not on the road. Like I used to go to Boston and New York because where I am in New Hampshire, people don't get the type of music I do. So I have to always
Oh,
go outside of my own town. I can't really play in my hometown. But yeah, when you go to New York, it's just so much is like going on. Like you show up in a small club, 300, 400 people, and usually there's a lot of people who are into experimental music. They're into the type of music I'm doing. I go to the venues where people are looking for that,
yeah.
and that is just so cool. I mean, as an artist, I get you end up going to a diner, where you talk to a blogger, talk to some other people that are like really core fans, like a real hardcore fan is like that's always at all the shows and so okay, let's go hang out, and yeah, it's cool when you can do that and you can trust the situation where you don't feel like it's uncomfortable or it's gonna be a problem.
Yeah,
you know
yeah, and like for all experimental music, it's not meant like it's not meant for everyone. It's weird to say that, but it really isn't. It's
yeah,
meant for people who enjoy that kind of experimentation, and it yeah, that's one of the reasons why it is so important to find the audience as an experimental musician. Like you have to travel to the people to
yeah, you have
find
to go
them.
where the scene is, like what we do.
Yeah.
People in Berlin appreciate it. There's certain scenes that are really into it. Like some places in Tokyo, you could do what I'm doing. Um, in some places,
Mm.
like in San Francisco, I could get a pretty good audience. It's just you kind of know the scene. Where are people doing like modular synthesis where there's guys on Euro racks for like doing like 20 minutes straight on like one kind of drone or whatever, and people are into it. And so, okay, that's the kind of place where you could go, and maybe they've got a screen and they're running their visuals, and they have some actors on stage acting things out. So yeah, that's the kind of scene I want to go into.
Yeah.
So I look for that. It's like, where are there film students? Where are there like experimental musicians? And that wherever that scene is, that's where, okay, I'll be there. Because that's where it's happening. I think that's why I do this podcast, is within the group of people, multiple genres that are trying to get folks who don't just want to hear one song on a playlist, or you're one of 20 artists on a playlist. They actually want to listen to Waterflower, like everything you do, right? So the kind of old kind of school fan that will go get vinyl or get a CD and sit down and listen to every song, and then we write to you, to your fan club, or be somebody writing to your newsletter back when people used to get fanzines and stuff. It's like that's the kind of fan I like to engage. They will actually buy the vinyl. That will show up and buy the cassette. They'll buy the T-shirt. That will show up with like 4 shows in a row, because that's what they're into. Because that's what I do. I mean, I would go see Parliament Funkadelic 3 times. If they played like Friday, Saturday, Sunday, I see them like every night. Because the way they were, it's like they play differently every night. And so that's why I wanted to see them. I didn't want to see them running the same thing on a CDJ exactly the same way they did it Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Not that that's bad, and not that everybody does that. People change things, but it's just I kind of into the kind of flowing kind of jazz improvisation of like progressive music. That's what I like. But I think there's a certain type of fan that's into that. Like you said, it's like it's not every fan that's into that, and you find the ones who want to be in that kind of experience.
Yeah, for sure. And when I'm finding that little group, that little niche of people in every town or city that I tour in, has been really amazing. And kind of in some ways there are good aspects of being in this current situation as well, because I feel that in some ways, instead of reaching out to just the people that we could meet going outside in the community, like suddenly everybody is a potential to reach out to. And I've been having interesting online connections and conversations, and like this one, and that I don't think would really have existed before then. I mean, it would have felt like something somehow further away, despite the fact that it's not like.
Well, it's cool that I can talk to
world.
that I can talk to you in Latvia, through this technology, and the fact that like most of the musicians I talk to are like outside the U.S. I find people like in the Netherlands and Finland, Iceland, everywhere. And what's really cool is just the ability, like you said, like a lot of times when you're an experimental artist, somebody shows up to the show and they're another producer, they're another artist, and then you end up getting a connection, and then you end up working with them. I mean, I've ended up like from this podcast, I've done collaborations. I've actually ended up doing projects where somebody comes like and say, you know what, I really kind of like what Peg's doing. Is like, can we kind of do something? And I've had like 3 different projects that came out of interviews from this podcast, and dealt with people from all around the world. And I think that's the whole idea of music, is to have a community and to do that. And usually musicians, like we kind of go see other musicians. We become fans of other musicians, and we just that, because when I listen to your work, it gives me ideas. It's like, okay, that's a different way to look at that, a different way to produce, and I'm like, okay, that's cool. I think we absorb what we hear, and sometimes it just comes out when I'm playing. I might pull like a Coltrane phrase, or I might pull like a Funky Buried in Whirl like chord progression, just because it was in my head, and I just I didn't mean to do it, but it just comes out because we kind of are who our influences are.
For sure. Yeah, look, actually, speaking of that, I mean, that happens to all of us. And I think that's really cool. And I like identifying it as well when it happens. I mean, that's a new stuff that no one's heard yet. I like identifying when a melody sounds similar to something a certain other band would do. And then I decide to go all the way and find a similar instrument, and it's I make sure it's a different melody, but I'm like, oh, then the
Yeah.
people who like that band will know.
Yeah, they'll know. Yeah. Well, I think it's like all music. Like if you think about the blues, it's kind of like Lead Belly and Robert Johnson. They're in the kind of same space. They're all kind of within that genre. They're kind of bouncing off each other. So there's certain, like if you get into like bebop jazz, there's a certain form, and all the bands that do that form are going to be in that space. So they're kind of like all influencing each other. And same thing with like different types of electronic music. There's certain people that were iconic in it, or certain people were kind of like the standard bearers of that form, and then you're going to pull it in. You're going to pull in some Joy Division. You might pull in some New Order, some Depeche Mode. You might some Cure, like any Echo and the Bunnymen, any of the bands that you hear. I grew up listening to so much of this stuff. It just kind of bounces in and out of my head.
It does. It does. It does. And well, I mean, that's a totally different theme, but like recently I've been teaching my parrot various melodies, and he's come up with totally new songs. He's learned human notes now, and
wow.
I find that really inspiring, that the way he even takes like a melody and
Yeah, he reinterprets it. Yeah, he has his own.
comes up with a new song. It's great having a little non-human musician at home.
I had a little parakeet. She passed on. I had two of them, and they would pick up sometimes stuff I did on my keyboard. When I actually she would actually pick up things and actually do it. And I never knew why she would pick certain phrases over other ones. She just like decided I like that one. So what's the cool band? Her name was Vanity. I was like, oh wow, it's like Vanity. Like, why do you like that one? I was like, I don't know. She just like, you didn't like this one, but you like that one. It's like, okay, that's what she liked.
That's really cute, and it's so cool. Yeah, also like having birds at home whilst making music. I also do feel that. I feel like if the bird is impressed, then I'm happy.
Yeah, you got something. Like if Vanity likes it, then I'm on to something.
Yeah.
Yeah, because like if she digs it, then that's pretty cool. So I should keep on working on that. I actually did that a couple of times, but
yeah, I'm also guilty of that. Yeah.
But it's great having you on the podcast again. And like I said, we're gonna push this out. We have been live on YouTube and Twitch and our Facebook channel, so that's cool. And they're gonna stay permanently on those channels. And we'll send you the links if we'll send you the links to where they are. We also, like I said, we'll do the audio version, and that'll take a little bit for that, within an hour or two, for those to have actually happen. But anytime, are you actually working on your next project? You said you had stuff that was kind of left over, or so is it going to translate into another project? Or are you going to kind of push this project for the most of this year? Or should we expect like another Waterflower album?
Well, I have a song that I'm currently working on where I went and recorded snowdrops, like wild snowdrops.
Oh, field recording, cool.
Yeah, but this time I used I recorded their I recorded MIDI from them. So using a MIDI sprout.
Oh, MIDI information. So the rhythm of them, the pattern coming. Well, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I like
and
that.
I also had I had some friends, my friend director Lima, come and film me doing that as well, like as a hope
awesome.
to try and make it more understandable, that like to connect that this sound came from plant. And
good sound here from snow.
So that I'm currently working on, and I have kind of like a deadline to finish it ASAP whilst it doesn't turn into full-blown spring here. Uh,
So that would just be like a single with a video release.
yeah, yeah. And then after that, I have a I'm planning to release another single from the same album. So
That's cool.
yeah, with the music video, fingers crossed.
Do you have this album on vinyl or CD?
On vinyl, on
You
pink
do?
vinyl?
Oh, you
Yes.
do. Oh,
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to put the order in for that. Because I just went crazy getting setting up for like a vinyl. I like wanted to jump back into vinyl, and then I went crazy, and I got this like tube amplifiers, like vacuum tube amplifiers.
Oh, that's so cool.
So I want to see
Yeah.
what your album sounds like coming through a vacuum tube amplifiers, because that's like the
Oh my
old
God.
school. Like because, well, I'm into mode, so I'm gonna go for something like that. But so like when I put the vinyl down, like a pink vinyl, that's gonna be cool. So just a hint to everybody watching, maybe you should do the same thing.
Yeah. Like if you go to the link that's on the screen, I think that it does also lead to the Bandcamp. Where
Cool. Yeah, Bandcamp. So that's where you're
Bandcamp.
doing now, Bandcamp. That's cool.
Yes,
Yeah, I have some stuff
on
there too.
Bandcamp. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm planning on. I had a project I was
Oh,
going to put on vinyl.
here it is.
Oh,
Someone
there it
just
is.
had-
Oh, somebody just
someone-
handed it to you.
Let me tell you. Yeah, it's got
Cool.
it's got a gatefold inside. And
Oh, awesome.
there's pink.
Wow.
I can't see. Where's the pink? Where's the pink? Because I was handed it, then of course I need to. Oh, this is the special copy.
That's a special copy.
Oh, it's just the
different than
plant.
normal.
Yeah, this one's different. Yeah, no, this is going to be okay. This is a bad advertisement. This is not what you
That's
get.
not the one. That's not the one. That's a special edition.
Yeah, no, because this was pressed in a plant in Riga.
Oh, so is
and,
that like a test pressing or the original pressing, like a special pressing?
this is a special one because actually it's like a full pink in the one on
Yeah.
Bandcamp, but then they gifted me these few experiments.
Special edition.
Yeah,
that's cool.
yeah.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, but it's the actual vinyl is totally pink, like hot pink, and
I think
obviously
that's totally
it's all
like.
pink.
Well, I think with an artist like yourself, it's good to physically have your work so that you can like touch the work and then put it down on a nice stereo system and
For
really
sure.
hear it.
And
so
and coming from like a touring artist perspective, I mean, the whole reason why I wanted to have vinyl was because the merch table is
that's like
gets
the best
hot
thing to have.
after playing shows, and I've always wanted to have this large gatefold big image thing, especially as a visual artist and multimedia designer. I work with stuff for print anyway, so I was like, oh yes, I
mean that's the thing about vinyl that I love is the art. Because when you do anytime you do a project, I work on these like sci-fi concept records, and I got these ideas for like like a lyric sheet and for the photos, and it's all like thematic. Because I grew up with like things like Tommy and Quadrophenia, and Wish You Were Here, and there's the idea that it's a big event to have an album that has some kind of connection to the fan. They open it up and they've got like some things that make them get connected to the artist. That also makes the focus that I'm not going to go take my needle and skip around the record. I'm actually going to let it play all the way through and then put the headphones on and actually listen and not be distracted by jogging or blogging or doing other things. I think that's part of the problem today is fans are not, or maybe fans who have experimental musicians like ourselves, I think do listen to our complete projects because that's kind of the nature of our work. We tend not to be playlist kind of focused people. We're more like project focused.
For sure. I'm like so happy for anyone who like listens to my album from A to Z, because I've really thought about the order of the album a lot, and the songs are very different, but the way I've ordered them at least in my opinion, they all come together quite nicely. And one of the reasons why I put out Love as the third single recently was because it's a very beautiful final track for the album, and I think some people might have not gotten that far at all. So
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, I usually if I listen to an artist, I try to listen to like their complete thought, which is their
Mhm.
EP or their album, because that's how how I find guests. So
Yeah.
I'll listen to people because it's like I'm the kind of fan. I used to go to the physical record store every Tuesday or Friday and look up on the board with the chalkboard, and they would say these records are out, right? And I would go and read Billboard or read Rolling Stone or read Spin, and anybody that got like a 5-star review, I usually would buy the record. And it didn't matter the genre. It's like anybody who got a 5-star review, 4-star review, I would be like, okay, I want to try that. And it was just then I would come home and I'd set aside time to like 2 hours to listen to all this stuff. And I think that people today are so distracted by so many different things. 5,000 channels on the TV, all the in video games and everything else, that they don't give themselves the time to enjoy music, in the way that it could be enjoyed. So I hope that people who listen to this will go pick up your record, actually get the vinyl pink version, and sit down in a nice quiet place and listen to the whole thing.
Yeah, yeah. If I and also the vinyl gives an opportunity for me to be audiovisual again.
Yeah,
You get
cool.
a visual thing to look at. Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, thank you, Waterflower, for being on the program. Anytime you want to talk about another project, feel free to connect with us. We're always willing to do that. So thank you for
Awesome.
being on the show again.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. This has been great.
Thank you. We look forward to getting that vinyl pretty soon. We'll probably
Yay!
we're putting our order in right now. So bye.
Yay! Thank you very much, and have a nice. It's day. Yeah, have a nice day.
It's daytime here, but
Yeah.
it's probably nighttime where you are, right?
Yeah, it's the sun. The sun has gone down at this point. Yeah.
Okay. Have a good night. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.